Welcome to the Uniformed Reality VIDCAST.
Unfiltered, unbuttoned, and no doubt unapologetic. Here we are, another episode. Exciting. I mean, it just seems like yesterday that we just dropped episode 1, but right back into the thick of things with just as much heavy-duty content to chat through this go-around as the last time we went around the maypole. You have this pandemic that continues to percolate, violent crime. We're going to really unpack that. That thing just, violent crime just continues to surge even in the midst of this pandemic. And I guess the biggest news we're going to talk about is the announcement not too long ago that Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's getting a brand new police chief. So we're going to talk about all of that. Before we do, I want to introduce myself. I'm Rob Tofano with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, again, along with my partner in crime, Officer Blake Page. What's going on, my man?
I hate to pick back up where we left off on that last episode about violent crime, but violent crime's impacting the entire community, and I think we would be foolish to not at least start off with that before we get into what everybody wants to hear about the new police chief, which is exciting. But just over this recent past week, there have been almost 70 people victimized by homes that were shot into.
In the midst of a pandemic, under all intent and purposes, stay-at-home orders, you have more people home and more homes that are being shot into.
Yeah, and Rob, even worse, it's not one area of Charlotte. It's out of all those shootings, it was across 8 of our 13 divisions.
That's incredible. So that kind of puts to rest the notion of, I don't give a hoot. It's not my backyard. That's somebody else's problem. Right. That's just straight up BS, at least if you're following the data. It can and is happening all across the city. You had a 15-year-old kid, driving, learner's permit, with his mother in the car, gets shot and killed right in front of his mother over his cell phone.
15 years old.
Northeast Charlotte. Oh, by another teenager. 18-year-old gunman, suspect with a violent criminal history, who takes the life of this 15-year-old over a cell phone. I mean, this is over a cell phone. This is where we are right now as a community. And you would think as we're in the midst of this pandemic, people are pulling together. It's infuriating.
It's absolutely infuriating. And what it's going to take is people caring enough at a much bigger scale than what it is right now.
This is when it was really telling for me where the priorities were and how violent crime was taking a back seat to the pandemic. We had a victim that was in an ambulance in West Charlotte not too long ago, chest pains, in an ambulance, getting ready for that victim to be transported off to the hospital. Something develops out there. Someone goes into that ambulance, a gunman goes into that ambulance and shoots and kills the victim in that ambulance. Now, obviously, you want to talk about man bites dog kind of story for the press. So we're bracing for every possible question that could possibly present itself when we hold a press conference out there on the scene. And, to their credit, a question or two about the incident. We're about 45 seconds into this thing. The media starts going down the COVID rabbit hole. That's when it struck me of just how big of a deal this COVID thing is and just how much of a backseat that violent crime is taking to COVID.
On one hand, it's good to get all that information out there. Yeah. But at what point do you become tone deaf to the same stories, to the same information? I think there's a healthy balance to information, and I feel that balance is not necessarily there right now because of how COVID is impacting not only us locally, but as a nation.
And we talk all the time about, we're going to get out in front of the community, and there are certain topics that you really want to tread lightly with. There's other topics that are just so grave that you want to thump the lectern. I go so far as to say this is such a concern, you want to pick the lectern up and throw it through a window. I mean, that is where we are with this thing. I hope that the community understands just how grave of a concern that this is for law enforcement, the work that we're doing to really address it, and more importantly, what they can do to help us along in that regard. Definitely something we all have to keep our eye on and work tirelessly to get our arms around, because this thing, if things don't shape up soon, we're going to start seeing a lot more of those tragedies. big news that came out not too long ago from the city manager about a new police chief. We're getting a new police chief in the not too distant future, right after the RNC. Deputy Chief Johnny Jennings, 28-year vet with the department. What are your thoughts? What are you hearing on the streets?
I'm excited to get to see him more and more as the days develop. He's hard to catch. He's almost like a moving target.
Oh, hitting that guy. That's exactly right. He is. He's like hitting a moving target. The guy's always on the go. And I wish I could bottle that energy and take a sip of that, because I've never seen somebody with the kind of energy that this guy's got.
Yeah, Rob, I think his bio speaks for his experience. I have heard so many people talk about this man and his approach to family.
Despite that man's calendar, and you better believe it is just slamming over the last couple of days, he found a couple of minutes to sit down and speak with me one-on-one, and I want the community to get to know him just as well as I do. Listen to you really closely when the announcement came out with the city manager, and you used the word humbled a lot. And that's not lip service. I remember having an off-the-record conversation with you when you first got in the news. You are and were really humbled by this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at this organization, and going back to 1992 when I joined, if you told me that I'd be introduced as the top cop in Charlotte instead of retiring, then I would have said, you're lying.
You get that call from the city manager, and what's your reaction there?
Yeah, it was a total shock to me. I felt like, of course, you go into any kind of process and you want to feel like, hey, I'm going to be the guy. And so when you do that, you have that confidence, but at the same time, there's always a little something in the background wondering if it's going to happen. My family couldn't be more excited, my wife and kids, and they're just happy to be staying in Charlotte. So
I've known you for a long time, and when I think Johnny Jennings, you hit it right on the head. I think family, that's the first and foremost thing that comes to mind.
Yes.
A big commitment to your family. They're at the top of your priority list.
My wife and I were blessed to have 3 great boys, and I wanted to make sure that I was there for them like my mom and dad were there for me. And so that was a big deal to me. Just to see them grow into the fine young men that they are today is just phenomenal. That's what I'm here for.
28 years in this business, that takes its toll on a family. You've missed a lot of things along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you sign up for this as a rookie, they tell you you're going to be working nights, weekends, holidays. I don't think you quite grasp that until you start missing out on things. I always felt like the sacrifices that I've made over the years, and I've told them this numerous times, it's for them.
When you think about those 28 years of sacrifice, did any apprehension creep in when you were thinking about advancing it and going even further in your career, being away from your family for several more years now by taking this new position on?
Everyone was absolutely thought out to the utmost, as much as I could think it through. My wife has absolutely been incredible throughout my career. I see it in our department where some of the stress, it leads to divorce, and I think police officers have a higher than average divorce rate, and it's difficult because of the career and because of the ups and downs that you go through, and you have to be able to go home and set that aside. So, my wife has never said anything negative about my job, about, you need to find something else to do, or I can't do this. And that's a testament to her. It also validates that I picked the right one.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. So, and even today, I just, I can't say enough about the love and support that she shared with me, and she's going to continue to do that because she knows what this next level is going to do as well. I'm a very competitive person. My motto is never stop being the best that you can be.
You talked about that competitive nature, and it just didn't and doesn't relate to your professional career. It also related to your academic career and even your athletic career. You were kind of a big deal back in App State in the day. Hall of Fame, linebacker. You did a lot of growing there at App State, did you not?
Oh, absolutely. I have a joke that I think the longer it goes, the better I was. When I was at school, I was never the athlete that could get out and run a 4.5 without training, I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the fastest, but I don't think as far as work ethic that anyone could compare to the effort and the work that I put into it. And so that goes along with being the best that I could be. I took what God gave me and made it into the best possible athlete that I could be, I felt like. And it paid dividends. I had a really, from high school to through college, football was number one for me, and I just absolutely made me who I am today. And it's I have a lot that I have to give back to that sport.
Talk about more of your role models, independent of on the athletic side.
You talk about role models. You can always pick athletes and famous people, things like that. My dad was probably the biggest influence in my life, and he instilled in me some of the values, or all of the values, that I have today and what I've passed along to my kids. So I have always been able to, throughout my career, talk with him and bounce things off of him. And he led by example. My dad he had 6 boys, and he did 21 years in the Army, and then probably about another 20 years as an ROTC instructor at my high school in my hometown. And just to see what he was able to do with his career and some of the things that he did throughout his life, and we never wanted for anything. And I have 3 kids, and I can't imagine trying to feed 6. And and trust me, we ate. So we never wanted for anything. We always had whatever all the other kids had, and we never showed that we had any type of financial. My mom worked sparingly because she was home taking care of us. So to be able to accomplish what he did is just something that is just that I'm still amazed by. And it really hurt when we lost him in December. He fought a hard fight, and but we know that right now he's up in heaven smiling down at this entire situation. So.
How much does that influence the way that you father your boys?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think that your kids have to be instilled with the values that to be productive human beings, and you want to have value in who you are in life. So I tell my kids that you have to have a goal, and you have to set those goals and try to reach them.
What would a Chief Jennings administration look like?
It's a teamwork thing, so I may be the chief and may have the final say in things, but we have such great talent with the deputy chiefs and the majors, all of the command staff within CMPD. I would be crazy not to make it into something that we all have a combined effort to make this department great, and we've done that.
Probably better than I do. Cops are the biggest complainers. You know what I mean? They can go to heaven and complain that the clouds aren't soft enough. To the person, when the word broke that you were the next one, I can't tell you how many people have approached me, how many people I have approached. Nothing. You'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who's got a crossword to say about you. And I think that's just a testament to the relationships that you build. And isn't that what this business is about, Chief? Is it about relationships?
It is. It's absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head that for one, no matter what role of leadership you're in, you depend on the people, the boots on the ground, the ones who are out there doing what your vision has been put forth for them to do. So I can't do it without them. In order to, you have to recognize that. Now, at the same time, I want to make sure that we have a level of pride in our agency that if someone is stepping out of bounds, you have to have someone else pull them back in. The agency is a reflection on, not just me as the police chief, but the entire city. And so I think that we have that pride in our agency, and I think that me being internal and already knowing the agency, the institutional knowledge that I have, that's going to benefit down the road. So.
Yep. Arguably as tough as it's ever been to be a police chief in a major city in this environment, with perception and with politics and things of that nature. this is going to be this isn't going to be an easy road, but a road you're willing to take on. Huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's never more evident in when you look at recruiting. I mean, we have a great deal of vacancies, just like any other agency across the country, and I think that a lot of that's instilled is it's just not popular to be a police officer right now. It's not popular to have this as a career. So we have to turn that cycle of the perception of police. The fact of the matter is, we have over 600,000 contacts in any given year, and for the most part, one of those incidents, and it doesn't even have to be in Charlotte, just a single incident somewhere can spark negativity towards the police across the entire country, where the truth is the majority, or the overwhelmingly majority of our contacts are very cordial and peaceful and go exactly as planned. It's when they don't go as planned that we have issues, and when they don't go as planned, when we have to make sure that we're accountable, we're upfront with the community, and we're given as much as we can to clear any false information that might be out there.
Chief, despite the department's best efforts historically with building and continuing to foster community trust, there's still, those in society and in our very community that have a really difficult time trusting the profession.
Yes.
How do we get around that? And what can you do under your administration maybe to bridge those differences and build on some trust?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to prove it. I mean, you have to do it by example. Now, I'm not going to be so naive to think that no matter what we do, there are people out there that just, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter, you could be the greatest police agency in the world. They're never going to come on board to join you in efforts to make this community better. Their goal is to dislike the police. And so the focus, I think, should be the ones that are willing to look at your profession and willing to have a different view and get to know you. And, Chief Putney says it all the time, and I'm not saying anything new, that it's hard to hate up close. And whenever I hear him say that, I think, you know what, that's right. You can talk about people and bash people when you're not away from them or if you don't know a lot about them. But what he means by up close is when you get to know someone, that dislike you have will change. A lot of times it will change. And that's not only just for people getting to know the police, it's the police getting to know the people.
And you're following in the footsteps of some pretty great leaders. You did Darrell Stevens,
yes.
And you did the Rodney Monroes, and now the Kerr Putneys, and I'm sure that's not lost on you.
I so admired Darrell Stevens, Rodney Monroe, Kerr Putney now, and you always look at, to me, at that role seemed bigger than life. So to be able to have the opportunity to be cast in that same role is so humbling for me. Let me go back to Chief Putney. I've always said he's one of the finest leaders that I've ever been around. And he gave me and I was saying a little softer. I was saying that jokingly because I guess nice guy. He's a little more stern. But I told him, I sat down and talked to him one day. I said, wow, that's just not who I am. I want to be able to do that more, but that's just not who I am. And he gave me the best advice that he has ever given me then, and said, you lead based on what your personality is, and not try to be someone else, because Darrell Stevens had his style, Rodney Monroe had his style, Chief Putney has his style. It works for all of them. I have my style.
When he says he's humbled at that lectern during the announcement, I know the man, and I mean, he was tearing up when we were talking the other. I hope I'm not softening your image too much here, but I mean, the man is truly, truly humble.
More and more convinced every time that we have one of the best departments in the country, and we live in one of the best cities in the country.
Excited to get after it?
I am. I'm excited, anxious a little, and just looking forward to it.
So, the next several months are going to be really intriguing to see how it all comes together. And actually, you know what? I think kind of exciting to see the way that a Jennings administration is going to shape up. You had an experience with Chief Jennings, during your time in North Tryon that really stuck with you. You were telling me that was an intriguing story.
Yeah, so I think I'd only been on for about 2 or 3 years at the time. And there was an officer in Georgia that was killed in line of duty. This officer was originally from same hometown as me, Rochester, New York, grew up in the same neighborhoods. And his department was transporting his body to New York to be buried. And as captain, I went through my chain of command and I went to Jennings and I said, "Hey, sir," I said, "I'd like to go to this funeral. Are you okay with that?" And I had his full blessing to go to New York and represent CMPD and pay our respects to this officer that was killed in the line of duty. And that always stuck with me.
What do you just show up? We come back and you're just on a chair and Tommy one take. Oh, he's in the chair now.
When you guys call, I show up. I'm just here to give my 2 cents for anybody that cares.
I couldn't get rid of me. I was telling him he's like a cat. You feed this guy once and you're not gonna be able to get rid of him.
Well, in 5 episodes from now, when I'm not here, we'll realize no one cared, and that's why I'm not here. So
how is this heavily promoted and highly talked about and anticipated franchise of yours, this big secret of yours, coming together? Any headway, any progress?
Of
course not.
It's a slow roll, and hey, no secret, there's this thing out there called COVID, and I think that's kind of pushed things back a little bit. We're trying to be responsible, and it'll make more sense once we roll it out, while we had to push the pause button a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. The pandemic's just got everything just twisted in knots, upside down, and hopefully we'll start to see some of that evaporate in the not too distant future. Getting close. Closing thoughts?
We've got a lot going on. It's exciting. What a better time for the department, for the city, to take this change, this pressure of change, no matter what it is, and just catapult into the next era of Charlotte.
We have some final thoughts, Tommy. One take.
I'll just say what he said. I think Blake summed it up pretty well, and who am I to try to jump over him? So.
Well, who are you to just jump over people? We can unpack that. Maybe that's another segment too, because there seems to be a pattern of that going on. Tommy, one take.
Yeah. I think maybe next week it'll just be me up here by myself. Maybe that's what the people really want to hear and see.
What'd your wife think of the first episode? She mad at you because you just kind of put stuff out there like that?
She gave her stamp of approval, but didn't say much else beyond that. So.
Has she said anything since?
Hey, we're still married.
All right, she's still talking to you?
We are still a success story for eHarmony.
And we'll keep everyone, and for those who've never joined us the first go round, shame on you. I'd highly encourage you to go back and take a look. Tommy was
it's the full evolution of my life.
Oh, and it's an evolution, something to behold for sure. I encourage you, especially the last 6 or 7 minutes of the first episode. You'll learn a heck of a lot more about Tom. Maybe a lot more than you'd ever want to know. But
forget the new chief. Maybe me and you need our own one-on-one. Really dive in. Be like a therapy session on the couch.
For which one of us? I think we're both in dire need of just that. I can't speak for you, but hey, anything you can do to help, because this is a disaster. Appreciate both of you guys, and everyone. We're going to get back at it again. Look for us the same time next week. Stay healthy, stay safe, and for heaven's sake, stay tuned.